Welcome to the Global South Women's Forum on Sustainable Development 2021. This is hosted by International Women's Rights Action Watch, Asia Pacific. I'm Rachel Long. I will be the technical support for this session. And before we start, we would like to share some virtual housekeeping announcements with you. This session is offering interpretation. Please go to the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen to choose your language channel. Mute original audio to only hear the interpreter. As participants, please turn off your videos and mute your microphones at all times, unless you are invited by the moderator to do so. If you are experiencing slow bandwidth, please close any unnecessary programs and/or applications on your device. Feel free to use the public chat box to engage with one another throughout the session. This session is live streamed on ERAW AP's Facebook page, and the recording will be available publicly afterwards. And with this, I'm handing over to Maggie. But before that, apologies. We do want to remind you that we are very committed to making this a very inclusive and safe digital environment and will not tolerate harassment of any kind, including but not limited to deliberate intimidation, sustained disruption of discussions. You are obliged to be respectful and to avoid replicating societal prejudices and inequalities. We regret to inform that participants who engage in disruptive behavior may be removed without prior notice. And with that, Maggie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Hello to everyone. We are so excited to be in this space at the Global South Women's Forum and to be able to share our film, Women Hold Up the Sky. Women Hold Up the Sky is a film that was produced by WoMin African Alliance, and it explores stories of resistance and communities in active struggle to take back control of their land, their rights, their bodies, and their lives through the eyes and experiences and voices of women impacted by coal, oil, and mega infrastructure projects in South Africa, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm very honored to share the film with you today. My name is Maggie Mapondera, and I'm the Communications and Media Coordinator at WoMin. With me to speak about the film are two women activists who were involved in the film or who are deeply connected to the stories in the film. Beatrice Rukanyanga of the Kwataniza Women Farmers Group, and Salomé Elolo, who is the Executive Director of Femmes, Solidaires in the DRC. I'll give them a chance later on once we have watched the film together to introduce themselves further. But without further ado, we're going to screen the film, which will be about 30 to 35 minutes long, and then we'll come back together to have a discussion about the film with our panelists. So I'll hand over to Marissa to start screening the film. Thank you. Hi, Marissa. I believe there's a problem with the sound.
Hi, sorry. Okay, wait, let me try.
The world is
Is
in
it better
deep
now?
crisis. The exploitation of the Earth's
Yes,
natural
we can
resources
hear.
for
Thank
profit
you.
in the name of development and for the benefit of a few threatens humanity and many other life forms. Nowhere can this be seen more clearly than in resource-rich Africa, where the costs are too often carried by working-class and peasant women. What makes things far worse for women is the system of male power. Patriarchy has ensured that women have few land rights and little or no voice in decision-making. Women are also vulnerable to violence. In this film, we travel to Uganda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and South Africa, and see how women, despite deep oppression, are organizing against corporations and the powerful that are destroying not only their local communities, where the harm can most be seen, but ultimately the future of humanity itself. Oil drilling activity across Uganda's West Albertine Rift area has been escalating. Land that for centuries has been communally owned is now being sold to big oil industries. People are being forced off their land by speculators and land grabbers.
Mulingo tukava 25 mu kwezi kwa 8 saa 12 tukava tukialo munju tukiavyamire twahuraga maruru nemundu nizitwaza baika
busao kintu kyona ekitwasigaize ebintu ebiro munju baikaganye bisango munju ni babichumika omuro nenju yona neya busao kintu kyona ekitwaihamuga ntuyiruka n'orugoyo tukasigaiza mubiri.
In 2014, the people of Rwamutonga village were forced from their land so that a US company, McAllister Energy Resources, could construct an oil waste management plant. The deal was done by 2 Ugandan businessmen planning to lease the land to the American company without consulting the villagers.
Sasa wakati tunasikia ati au napiga sisi tunachukua report kwa High Court Masende. Wakati si bado samba kesi hiyo mara moja au nakuja piga sisi kwa fasi tunataka wadongo hii kwa yetu, lakini map ndio hao wanakuja piga sisi kwa map.
In a violent raid that took place just before dawn, more than 300 families were forced from their communal land. Police delivered the eviction order to each household, which stated that any structures on the land should be demolished, and then left court bailiffs to drive the families from their homes.
Kuruga saa 12 za nyenkyakara mpaka 12 za rwebagyo obulemu nibwa masese negachulera hati itwe twairuka mwaneiba eruguru hali twaraire hati bo baruga kula abasajja batayiba baija bajja kumusera bakasanga ali mu kisaka buzirefa atakiarora wena zimba zimbe bamuteire baja bamukomayo yaika yagamba owaikira bamutera nibateratera gasi mulingo bamulekera gwire akabatakia amanya mulingo bagenzera tabatakumanya biyo nankurora biyo na vile mtwe gwange abukwa wire bukukia akwikaliraho mulingo ngenzere ruguru wati musangira limuka obwire kukia taina alagenda akwikaraho muka mwana obwire obwo twairuka twalekenera abanda abaniba baitaro abanda bahambirwa abakazi
Kwa tunasumbuana na yeye, tuchukua yeye kwa daktari hadi yeye anakufa. Hata
Apologies, sorry.
Raho muka mwana. Obwire obwo twairuka twalekemera abanda abaniba baitaro abanda bahambirwa abakazi.
until awa nakamata bibi moja jina yake ati Mungu. Haka tunasumbuana na yeye, tuchukua yeye kwa daktari hadi yeye anakufa. Hata saa hii tunazika yeye kwa kambi.
A kind neighbor allowed the displaced families to build shelters on his land, but the camp was far from schools and medical facilities, with no farmlands or sanitation.
Abana baitu bahika kubonabona muno nga nyo omukazi nyina abana 8 kyonka nka nyina abana bali mu senior ya 2 abana bakandemera abana bakalekaho kusoma
tubaire ntubonabona mulingo kakurembonabona ye kampu kurugo bwiro bono hikakyaliro tukyabonabona kulya utaina mere utaina kintu tugenda muleija nogenda saa 12 yakira saa 12 ntugure mere ntulio bwiro bwo abana abandi bainogenda omusiri ogaruko bwire buhingwire mwana asikirwa musije enyuma nosanga abana abandi bafuire ebitulo tubirekere biro mu kampu.
In December 2016, the High Court in Masindi declared that the eviction was unlawful and the community was able to return to their land.
Kuba kusika mulingo tukaintu bona taina okulima otwaulie tugaruko muitaka tutandike kulima twaura tusemereiro.
One of the businessmen who colluded with a U.S. company continues to contest who owns the land, and the threat of eviction is ever present. The community's land suit is still pending at the Commission on Land Inquiry.
Hatinko mugego wako wanaenda itaka, itwe tuina abaloya baitu. Tuina na ekitongole kikutuirwanira bagabe bw'abantu. Bakwija ni barora baloya, ni barora ekitongole kurwanira bagabe bw'abantu, ni barora akakomite kabataka, ni baikiraniza hatali kuja nefuje ngubaije batutere butira batuvinge muitaka.
Kwa katikati ya watu hapa, mimi iko sasa mkubwa ya wabibi. Kwa komiti, member mimi iko komiti katikati ya wataka. Sasa kitu tunafanya, tunakaa na watu na kufundisha zaidi wabibi, tunakaa na hawa, tunafundisha hawa, tunakaa na roho ngumu. Tukaa na roho ngumu namna tunarudi naye kwa dongo hii. Hakuna mtu mwenye atakuja vunja sheria yetu wabibi hapa. Kama hawa nakuja kufukuza sisi mara nyingine, sisi takufa hapa kwa dongo hii. Tutakufa paka hawa watamaliza sisi yote, wataka kama tunakufa yote ndio mzuri.
In Uganda, women make up 76% of the workforce producing food for domestic consumption.
abakyara abatwina hano bulisa batungiremu obulemezi habukuba ubukwa bikire byokutunda itaka mukyara bulisa tagira itaka omusiro lima ulimo musiro gwangu nyaguzire ebyo kola beereze ko bima itaka lyange obalaba bisasuire yutena ho kantu
Kakindo Orphans Care uses plays to help women better navigate the challenges they face in their communities.
Oweni kyoki kukuwera mukali wange sebe kwa kukiyega oweni munyani wange kale
hanyuma yokuziya yo musaija narura sente zizire nyingi yoredo mukaze ikaire nayo okuzire tokiazoka kurungi nasera yo mugonze bondi naswera naho ne barugaho ne bagenda handi nambere yotakumanya no yesango no mukyara nabana basigayo hawo ne babona abo
kano no mukyara abe yetegereze ndamanya nanyo hanu nyinakora kina nyo hana yakora kino hanu sente sebe kumigiriza no musajja yege mwekinde sente obaje kubayihamu esente ziri za family yona
izo wonde dimwe 0 ibere
11 women have brought legal action against Tullow Oil.
Aba mafuta bakatalibaniza byekulya byaitu bino byokulya byaitu bakabitalibaniza baija barabyamu obutrakita barabyamu bwagureda bwabu ebiwaya byabo babirabyamu nebimotoka byabo hati bayizire kusasura nyonkarora sente zibalesere zitali nizo ebintu bindi batalesere nibyo nyona yanga kukwata sente unagenzera kubagambira ensoberoho bagamba boti babiroho nyeyongera kugenda nagenda mukoti nabanyegera omusango kuruga 2011 gutahayo mukoto okwo tigugira rugendo tulinka bukamujyo bukurwana nenjojo kuba enjojo yonkoto we kusangiriza hanu iwe nkoko kali ekuse kukuruba tahone.
In the Kabale region, the government offered people the choice of resettlement or compensation to make way for the construction of an oil refinery.
Tagakantalibaniza gakirija twamantwaza kubaje chonka gashanga nyewe umushije wanje amaziri kufa asijire family yabandi 11 umuchibanje go umuji family kwasire hati hanyuma yabali family kuyisha babanka batina tensirizamu batubuza ngo itaka lino kwalitongota hati nkitwa abantu batashomireho twabanka babatina batuhereza hanyuma kumaliye bateza ubusente buce omukazi nkabona bona ifainale oyizire nasigane kuzini mbona bona tena ho kuhinga no kubashomesa ifainale oyizire ifainale obuyezire kwenda twabonabona twarire itaka batushenyera amaju mwena bwati twe nitubonabona.
Gavumenti ekija yatukwata hitaka yaritwara engudo ziri kurabamo zishabamita izo zirenda cyonka zongerayo ruguruga zihamunonga era pipeline nayo iri kwija nayo irabaho nkabati usigaza nkakantu batikandi bara kugira ngo hano torahingaho ekirabasa kuturika usigara aho ti naye eri hano hatoshoberwa ecyo gukora
titwine naho kugira ngo ati na next year turitwenda kuba mu bantu abayenda kurumwenja habo kuba tutahinga ibintu byo kutuyamba enoga yitu aturahinga ebicholi twabitekemo mu itaka.
With the oil developments and influx of people has come securitization and enforced curfews. Here, a school that was shut down when people were displaced has been taken over by government soldiers for their offices and barracks. For those who opted for resettlement, the government promised new homes, health centers, schools, roads, and clean water. They have not delivered. After 6 years, only 46 of the 75 families have homes, and these are far from farmland.
Obujubwa hehe kandi kizu twafune mu nshayika muno tukaba twine nkoko twine embuzi hati buhayizira abantu abandi bayiza bine nkoko zigwere inkoko zetu zahwerokimu na majuge tugana gumukuru atigine makantu tigina masanyarazi titwine muningo gwana bakawayalinga baitu bateka masanyarazi tupikane tutalibana na abana nibagwaragwa hakuba bakujya kubi titwine obusinge kandi obwo musana kuba niguje tukufuna mayizi gona tukurare njara hati nkabwire bune tanka yange nutarimu na mayizi.
Ekitashasha kushirayo nikureba ngo government iziye yaturetere nkurakurana cyonka twagire kwetegeza ngo yo government eri kutukozesa bukozesa enkurakurana yayo amafuta yaragamba ati tukagarebagaho kandi tuturije kugarebaho yo government niyerenda kutunga amafuta ago.
In 1972, the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo began constructing Inga 1, the first dam of the Grand Inga hydroelectric project. In 1982, they began Inga 2. In the Bundi Valley, in the western part of the DRC, communities displaced by the dams still live in darkness decades later. Now a new set of large dams is proposed, starting with Inga 3.
Inga 2, premier barrage, deuxième barrage. Bavuna kabeto. Ke baketu la beto ba bien. Banda ba bien ina batu bila kabeto yao. Mena na kiluwa bubu ya bakena tu barrage, troisième barrage batunga. Beto moi to zona beto, yikele ve. To zona ve. Ya kutu tubaka. Sikana gouvernement. Yani vuanda kana mbaksu na luzolo. Et puis beto. Kana beto vuanda ka mungu mvuana place ya gouvernement. Nga muni ya tete. Ya kumanga projet ya Inga 3 parce que na force muna ku prendre soin ya bato amuno na peya muno.
Banda bametunga ka première phase deuxième phase bamvula meshanzeke mtoto ke pesa dia kama diave maza pe ya imbi kwa nitoke kunwaka mwaito vana maza bien ikeleve ale nani mwaito vana na madia dia ka mingi ikeleve babibulu mezimba laka na bilanga bakala munu ke chasser mais enlève vanda mwana ke kwana bilanga kibulu ke monu kadia kafe peshi pe bambizi mezimba naka
ntangwa bankhaga betu sipartinge ke sala ya fyoti kwandi me yeke mona nguba basaki madezu yake buta façon kaka mankhondo yayi donke ngeke kwenda yankaka kena kubola kwani na bamfinda
comme lukola maladi ya makolo rhumatisme oba bengi rhumatisme ekomi ebelo kotala na mwana mukie azoloba makolo pasi mukongo na ba marangwe oba bengi binkofia marangwe ezomemela biso maladi ya kokufa misu ba aveugle bakomi ebele ba mususu kutu babimi mboka oyo pona maladi ya aveugle ale malmen mutete ezopesa biso maladi di sommeil mena kala po mona mutazobela maladi wane zaki pasi
kaka beto batu bilaka bao babongisi bakotila beto courant nzila hôpital ba école mais moye bakokisa ba mambo yina ikeleve et puis titoke awa courant keleve développement beto tutoza beto fait développement ngo yina nini parce que na beto moye to mona beto ba développement ngo ikeleve.
The dam sites are highly militarized, as the film crew discovered when they were followed and harassed by security personnel and prevented from filming the dams. Having paid the price for Inga 1 and 2, the communities still do not benefit from the energy they generate.
Beto bamama beto ndeke monaka phasi. Samu nini ke? Toke lambilaka na bakuni, kura keleve, toke salilaka makala, bayankaka pe bakeko kubaka vembongo makala. Bakeko obligatoire kwenda sosa kaka bakuni mechifwa.
Betoke pedisaka ba mwinda ina mwinda petrol manzanza bougie samna moyeba pesa beto courant ikeleve. Bage pesa beto courant ve samna nini ntima imbi.
At Camp Kinshasa, now home to many of the families and former workers displaced by Inga 1 and 2, the electricity supply has become so unreliable that fish rot in the freezers.
Anakati sasa kitombe na kitombe kura limiere ya fioti bametulaka betu ba transport ya fioti moya pesa éclairage pensa mingi ikeleve kurango mokuma kwa netika kaka ba photo kwani na inzo bevuanda kwani kesala kwani kima vele la tambusa ni resho même kutu bankaka même congélateur ba niveau ba côté na ndimbe na ile congélateur même frigo yake tambusa ve yake sala ve.
As fish traders who freeze and sell their catches from the river, the lack of power severely impacts women's livelihoods.
Ngelenda vuana courant lokola yakele muzoteka tamisoni ya mungu muzoteka sika mungu babima niyo stuina ya kena kubenda batu ina kena mbongo kena luta na zulu
melere yayi beto ya keleve moye pe ba mambo ngo salema ikeleve parce que courant keleve prince keleve.
Women's need for energy echoes the injustices around power production and supply that occurs at a continental level in Africa, where power lines pass overhead and villages remain in the dark. In spite of the World Bank withdrawing financing in 2016, in 2018, the government announced the project would be going ahead with a consortium of Chinese and European developers and a recommitment from South Africa to purchase the power. The National Electricity Company, SNEL, will sell the majority of power from Inga 3 to South Africa's energy parastatal, Eskom, and will mainly benefit corporates and the DRC's Katanga mines, with the rest going to the capital, Kinshasa, and surrounds. The new revised plan will see Inga 3's power output increase from 4,800 to 11,000 megawatts, with South Africa showing interest in purchasing additional power.
Inga inga de. Beto baka benefisi ve beto mona diambu ve malunga ina yake na kusala. Diambu mosi ve kima mosi ve ni ba panga beto ba ya eyandrua ba tala ba droit ya ba kima mosi ve surtout SNEL era ngam ngata munu SNEL vraiment ametu mubaka place ya l'État donc na l'État na ba mko ba ba pangi kana kulutu na legi kana iki foaso barrage ngo ya ba mosi ba meza ba entrer na sorti ya mbongo ina tive me ore ke bwala kena barrage ya nene kena kutinda kura na baiti ya banzenza kuna kura kena kuenda kura mosi ya bien ke stable me beto mosi kena kati ya izini kena bwala ina kena kubimina kura beto kena kura ke stable ve moyen l'État tadi la mambo ya ba communauté ina ya batu na ke kuna ndi bongi sababu yikele ve yawu ina na kitombe ina kena beto kuna na yinga kuna.
The Bundi Valley communities want to be part of an energy system that grants access to all Congolese and safeguards their lands, livelihoods, and way of life. Until this happens, they will continue to resist.
Eloko tosalela ka poto lite contre projet wana tosala ka tose groupe ka to sali ensemblement to fandi place moko to yoka ke na energie po ozwa courant basala ka courant mingi na mupepe pe na soleil na biso oyo bakosala biso te ba pano soleil po ebebisela biso mabele te bakosala biso pe mupepe te po ebebisela biso bamai te.
Mais le corps la gouvernement qui soit soivé en train de lander la musique ve beto communauté na population betu metela betu met tuba no projet inga 3 betu ke tatu ka ve betu me mange.
In South Africa, the women of Fuleni in KwaZulu-Natal have played a leading role in successfully defending their land and way of life from 2 attempts to mine coal. In 2016, they won their fight against Ibuto coal. And in 2018, they stopped a new mining company, Imvukuzani Resources, from obtaining a license to prospect. In nearby Somkhele, a company called Tendele Mining started open cast coal mining in 2007.
Ma isifikile ke imayini ke ngenxa yokuthi yayisithembise ukuthi abantwana bethu bazosebenza bazotrain abantwana sakujabulela ungena kwemayini ithe isingenile hayi zashintsha izinto kwanzima ngoba ungena kwemayini akubanga nje ngoba babe kade besithembisile ekuqaleni.
Yangikhulisa kungikhulisa kakhulu enhlizweni ngoba phela ngiyangitshela ukuthi ngizosebenza manje nangiye ngibona omunye umuntu egqoke i-information emayini kungisiphathe kabuhlungu
bavele bangena nje baxhumana nobukhosi khona ke ubukhosi bakithi la kwaMpukunyoni baxhumana nobukhosi base besebenzisana nobukhosi nje
The Tendele mine relocated the community to nearby land. Each household received a small sum of money from which they had to pay transport for their relocation and build new homes. Preparing for the further defense of their land, women from Fuleni visit Somkhele on a fact-finding mission to see for themselves how the arrival of the mine would impact their lives.
Kuze kuyoshaya phansi yobubona nje indlu yonke nje yobubona nje udonga lolu mase bedubula uyanyakaza
Sakwenzeke kanje ukhona nomzamo wakho wawuzama mhlambe wabhekisa emayini ukuyocomplaina ngomuzi wakho ukuthi uyaqhuma
bathi bazoza nomshini wabo kodwa ngesikhathi bedubula akwenzekanga njengoba besuke bedubula bengekho hawu basuke beshaya amadwala amatshe laba washayayo yebo bathe bejika bathi ke akiyimayini esidabulela izindlu zethu basichitha nje ukusichitha kanjalo kutshene wemama thini imayini asifisi njoba usibona nje kulolu khala
kanjani nje amanzi enwaphuzayo
hey amanzi ayinkingi yayibona idust esidlayo
ngaphakathi ke kunjani esifubeni
kunjani ubhlungu esibuzwayo.
Relocating the Somkhele community to make way for the mine has also meant moving their family graves, and families have not been fully compensated.
Yeah. Sithele sesixoxisana nabo.
Bangcwaba kabuhlungu kakhulu ngoba imigodi yakhona ayijabulisi imfishane. Ayimfishane kakhulu. Abahamba khona nje ke ngoba mina ngiyasaba ukuya lapha okungcwatshwa khona abazali bami. Ngiye bethi ke bebone impahla kwamanye amathuna ivela.
Sese sixoxisana nabo ke sathi no. Amathuna lapha namalini izulu ayaguguleka ngithi niyayibona indawo ithele. Base ke beqasha inkampani ekhona emphakathini. Yazokufaka kanjena ke lamatsheke. Yathi imayina isenayo imali. Ngakho kanisakhona ukuqhubeka. Ingakafiki le company le efakele zile.
In 2015, Tendele Mining sold a 20% stake in operations at Somkhele to local employees and community leaders. The 350 million rand empowerment deal is led by a committee of businesses connected to the mine, traditional leaders, and the local mayor. Yet, the Somkhele community has not seen any of this money and has never been compensated for the farmlands they lost.
But ena yonke into bona bayenza nobukhosi. Uma sithi siye ebukhosini siyocomplaina khona. Inkosi sitshela ukuthi thina sinandawo thina. Indawo ngeyayo. Akulona iqiniso lelo. Umuntu mayefika endaweni uyabekwa akhiphe zonke imfanelo akalela indawo yakho ukuthi uzohamba la ugcinela. It means leyo ndawo leyo sekungeyakho.
Sawubona.
Ngiyaphila nje.
Hey kwaSomkhele. Ngibona ubunzima obuyisimangaliso. Sabuya sathi akukho nokukodwa esingathi kuhle ngemayini.
Njengamanje imayini ilapha. Kuthi kodwa manje izosondela la ezansi, lana nje eduze ezansi kwalomuzi nje. La emhosheni.
Ngase ngibaqwashisa ke mina ngithi hey yebo mama. Ningalokothi nivume imayini ngoba imayini the time ifika kunina the first time ifike inithembisa ithembiso ezinhle yenzela ukuthi nenze njani nivume emva kwalokho ngeke kusenzeka njengoba ibishilo ngabaqwashisa ngathi even ngisho inkosi uqobo ningayivumeli hambani nenkosini niyothi nje asifune imayini la
ukuthi siyasithola ukuthi inkosi ithi ayikwazi ukukhuluma nathi singomama kanti thina siyini kusho ukuthi thina silutho wangiphatha kabuhlungu wangiphatha kabi ila sagcina sesibona ukuthi sicindezelwa ngemayini inkosi yethu yasidindezela
The women organized a water assembly.
Siye safike sathola laphana ukuthi imiphakathi yalaphana ayinawo amanzi le lapha bakha khona kukho safety. Abantu besifazane bayadlwengula, abantu besifazane bayabulawa.
Imayini yenze njani yabalomba ngoba mayifika imayini ithi awu mama babathanda kabi ukuthi ukusuka ingane zingekho lezi ezifundile no balofundile. Befike nje kimbetha umama kwaze masinganika 10,000 ngalokuthi awumntana awulungile phela mntana letha imali iyaqala iyafika ingane we mama awusayine what mama wow yini uthanda awuzothola imali uthuthe iphela imali ungakabi ke.
At the time of filming, the Umfolozi River, which is the main source of water for people and livestock, had almost dried up. The mine blocked access to the river and police arrested people breaching the mine fence to collect water. In the midst of an acute drought, the mine used scarce water resources to wash its coal in preparation for export.
Ingakafika imayini wesilima uthi noma unisela ubona isithombo sakho sigubhuzela sikhula siyaphezulu sikhiqize siyahlukumezeka nasengadini zethu siyahlukumezeka nje ngoba kugcwala ilahle emntanami konke lokho othi uyakulima kuvele nje kumbathi ilahle idustale kugcine isithombo sakho sesithothobala sithothobala
lana utshana bukho akho kwayihlahla manje nje imfuyo nje impela kunoma iyande iya iphelile.
Inkomo zidla le duster egcwele la nathi esibulala njengoba sesakhwehlela nje.
Fast forward to 2019. The women activists of Somkhele stand with their community organizations as they fight the mining ministry's approval of a 30-year mining right. The community argues that the mine has failed to meet basic environmental requirements. And the women of Fuleni remain defiant. They will not back down.
Empeleni ngabe baqonde nje ukuthi sife ngoba akekho umuntu ongahlala emhlabeni oguge njengalowa. Umhlaba uligugu malina ubahlaza kube khona ithelo akukho into engaphinda lapha yana ibe yinhle.
Kufika la sinyana khona
The long droughts in southern and East Africa over the last decade and the early 2019 cyclones, which have killed many hundreds of people, are just a few of the signs of the ecological crisis. And it is women who carry this cost too. But there is hope. As African women and their communities resist mining, fossil fuels and mega-hydro, they are defending the rich ecosystems and biodiversity upon which human survival rests. They are protecting the planet from its imminent destruction by empires of greed and profit. In their daily practice of growing food, reproducing indigenous seed, and caretaking forests and water bodies, they model a way of living which humanity must follow if we and the planet are to survive in the decades to come. African peasant and working class women live our best hope for the future of all humanity, holding up the sky for us all.
Thank you so much for watching the film with us. I haven't seen it in a long time, so it was actually really amazing to be able to watch it once again with you all. Again, my name is Maggie Mapondera, and I'm the Communications and Media Coordinator at WoMin African Alliance. With me to talk about the film is Beatrice Rukanyanga, and I'm going to ask Beatrice if you can turn on your camera so everyone can see your face. Beatrice is part of the Kwataniza Women Farmers Group. I think you heard part of their story in the film itself. They're a community-based organization based in Hoima district in Uganda, and they're coming from an oil exploration area in the Albertine region of Uganda. And so much of the organizing is focused on challenging extractivism, oil extractivism, and its impact on farming. And the other person who will be with us today to talk about the film is Salomé Elolo. Salomé, please may you also turn on your camera so everyone can see you. Salomé is part of Femmes, Solidaires, which is a nonprofit women's organization based in the DRC. And they work for the promotion of women's rights in natural resources and the environmental sector. And a lot of their work is supporting women that are fighting against the Inga Dam project that you saw in the second part of the movie. So I think without further ado, we can start talking about the film. If anyone has any sort of comments or observations or questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to engage with you and really make this a discussion. But first of all, Beatrice, you are a member of a community that has been impacted by extractivism. Can you tell us a little bit about how the film is relating to your community's struggle and how that struggle is unfolding right now?
Okay, thank you so much, Maggie. And hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Beatrice, and I would want to share the experience in relation to the film. As we talk now, oil exploration activities are still going on, and the land acquisition processes are still continuing, especially now in regard to the pipeline, the crude oil pipeline, and the feeder oil pipeline. So that means that still the processes of land acquisition have not taken care of women. You know very well in Uganda, the biggest number of women are not legally married, and the Ugandan's law states that for any compensation on the family property to be considered on a woman, it must be a woman that is legally married. So still, we find that the women who are not legally married and they're just cohabiting, they still get suppressed over compensation. You very well know that the majority, the biggest percentage of women, they are the ones that work on land. They are the ones that keep land and protect land. But when it comes to ownership, control, and access, they are limited in a way. So it is kind of a vicious circle, a continuing process, which we have to continue fighting and resisting. And also when it comes to issues of environmental destruction, the way you see in the film where when they are constructing the Inga Dam, they are putting a lot of power lines. It is the same way here in Uganda. There is high destruction of Bugoma forest, the way you might have heard on social media and other media platforms. There is great destruction of Bugoma forest, which has been very useful in terms of modifying the climate, in terms of getting food, in terms of getting construction materials. And you know, a woman heavily depend on climate for livelihood. And we are the sole producers of food on table. So when such a natural forest is destroyed, it is the woman who will suffer most. And also, you know, there is also an issue of pipeline, I mean, an industrial park that is under construction within the refinery area. A majority of the people who have been given jobs, majority of the people who have been given services to provide, so in catering, in cleaning, it is basically the main companies that have been given such kinds of opportunities. So we feel that we need to still continue struggling and energizing the women. You know, currently we are undertaking our struggles through music, dance, and drama, the way it is in the film. So women, grassroots women are organizing, putting up drama, putting up plays and music to inform the authorities that such kinds of oppressions are still going on and we need redress as soon as possible. So I think that is how briefly I can comment on the film. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. I think there's a lot of power in what you have said and in the way that women are organizing and struggling. So thank you for sharing that. Salomé, FESO, Femmes, Solidaires, your organization supports women who are impacted by Inga. Could you tell us a little bit more about the struggle and expand on the film?
Yeah, as we all watch the film, you can see that those are the same community that gave their land for Inga 1 and 2. So by Inga 1 and 2, they were promised to have schools, hospitals, and works. But what they did, they've never gave work to that community. They took people from another province to come and do labor work there, but they've never received any work. So there's no school coming and telling them that we are going to build another dam. You did not do anything for us. And they're like, okay, 1 or 2, we were not around. It wasn't us. So these 3, it's us, we are promising you, we'll give you hospitals, we'll give you schools. And they were like, it's just the same. But the problem is that the women, they don't have a voice or a say in it. So the ones that make decisions there has in the community, it's only men that are there, not even women. So that is it's a big struggle. So what we do, we inform the women, we give them voice to speak up, even if they are not give them voice to speak up. That women are raising their voice higher than men. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I think you just turned off your video so that you can be clearer.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, so what I was saying, so by now you can see that women are doing their best to like lift their voice higher and speak and make decisions. Although men are like trying to like get their voices there, but women are really working hard to get their voice there because community to come here in Kinshasa and to meet the authorities. And you saw women who were talking, they were not afraid. They were like expressing what they were feeling. And they were saying, no, we cannot destroy our land no further. We cannot have like a good soil where you can have everything without going far. But now for them to have water, they have to walk like 8 kilometers for them to get water. And by walking with 8 kilometers, there is no security. So most of them, they have been raped. They are raped in their way from like getting water. And you can see men who are telling us when we were there last year, like most of their children here, they are not ours. And you're asking men why? or because when they are going to fetch water at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, they come back at 6 a.m. in the morning. So those, some of the children are not ours. You can see that even the insecurity is there. So why building another dam where you cannot even solve the previous one? So fighting so their voice can be heard. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Salomé. I think across all the stories that were depicted in the film and what Salomé and Beatrice have said, you can see the same themes recurring and recurring. The empty promises of this so-called development that is supposed to bring opportunities, it's supposed to bring, you know, resources to these communities and help them to thrive and prosper. And the reality is always just a context of violence, and none of the promises that have been made by these companies and the government are ever fulfilled for these communities. And it's really a story of disappointment. Back to you, Beatrice. Why do you feel it's important to tell the stories of African women fighting for climate and ecological justice? Particularly for those, you know, those stories to be told by the women in those communities.
Thank you, Maggie. I think it is very important for the stories of women to be told. First of all, it gives a rim light to the entire world. Women stand up to speak on their own on the issues that affect them. So when they share such issues that affect them, they are heard nationally, internationally, and worldwide. So that when a particular nation is suppressing those grassroots women, it feels that it is being monitored by the entire world, and in a way it tends to reduce and find measures of mitigating such impacts that they are causing to the grassroots. And secondly, you know, some of those issues affect the lowest grassroots women. Sometimes those women lack capacity to stand and speak for themselves. So when such stories are being told, they feel energized, they feel the energy to speak, and they are also able to learn from others that such and such a different community is going through such and such an oppression, and it is a way that they handled it. In such a way, they are able to learn from one another, from different areas, from different perspectives, in order to energize and strengthen on their strategies, how they are handling such oppressions. And also, when such issues are spoken, we learn. For instance, today I'm sharing the experience of Uganda, and we are hearing the experience of DR Congo. We are also hearing from South Africa. We are seeing how different women are organizing. When they organize in such a different way and they succeed, even as the Ugandan or another country is able to advance or adopt the way other countries are organizing, it also gives an energy that women are being listened to. It also gives a feel that women are being looked at in terms of their issues that affect them. So it is a way that we should keep strengthening the spaces, because sometimes it is about increasing the number of voices.
Absolutely, Beatrice, and I think that was really one of our main motivations
advocacy
for making the film. Oh, sorry, Beatrice, I thought you had finished.
You have
Please
a
carry
bigger
on.
number. You attract allies, so your issue can easily continue being told. For instance, when it comes to climate, you all know that when climate is disrupted, getting food made to walk long distance, securities on the way, sometimes they are climate justice, I think in a way they feel protected. So it is one way we get solidarity with other people, we share experience and learn and unlearn from each other. I thank you.
Thank you for that, Beatrice. Sorry I interrupted you for a second there.
It's
I think
okay.
my sound my sound went out for a second. But everything you said really resonates deeply with the motivation for making the film. I think we really saw that there was a real lack of stories and films about that really profiled the voices of African women and, you know, Black and brown African women on the front lines of the climate struggle. And so we wanted this film to be able to be used as a tool and a platform for those voices to be heard and to build the kind of solidarities that Beatrice is talking about. Salomé, maybe you can also step in here and particularly to talk about, you know, the importance of telling these kinds of stories with the Inga case, where there are other continental interests involved, like the South African government and South African finance. And why is it so important to have a film like this so that we can start to make those links?
Yeah, for us it was very important because having the voices of the community, especially with outside the province, was very important, because when they are telling you that the electricity will be sold in South Africa, so you wonder, like, Africa, why energy when they have one? Why destroying our climate change just for them? But having the voices being heard outside, and we are like this solidarity, like, okay, maybe South African people will hear us and maybe they will join us by the force, and then together we can make this thing stop. Because right now, if you go to Inga, their soil is really, really dry. Like when the rain is supposed to fall down in Inga, they don't have rain like they used to nowadays. So everything is changing. But what I can say is solidarity is the very biggest important thing that us we need, like the women of the community needs, the women of Inga needs right now. If South Africa or other women, like, they can like give that alliance and say, okay, we are going to support the women from DRC, and together we can stop that, we can stop the dam, and it can be okay. But how can they be, how can they know if women did not help to make the film? So the film was very important because the film helped people to watch and understand how Uganda, South Africa, and DRC women are struggling and they are keeping fighting for what right for what is right for them. So I.
Thanks for that, Salomé. Beatrice, coming back to you for a second. What are sort of the changes that women would want to see, that the women of Kwataniza, women farmers, like, what are 2 to 3 changes that you want to see, that you'll say that this is the justice that we are fighting for?
Okay. First of all, there are several changes that I would want to see, but I will highlight on the most important ones. First of all, we would want to see the involvement of many women in decision-making levels, both politically and socially. You know, when a woman is limited on decision-making, most of the policies, most of the laws, most of the undertakings will suppress a woman. And also, when it comes to access, control, ownership of land, women will remain suppressed, but when they are in high decision-making positions, they will advocate for reforms. They will advocate for improved laws in the country. For instance, in Uganda, we currently don't have a law that allow women who are married, who have been cohabiting and have not been legally married to own land. So in such a way, they will advocate for such a law to pass so that women can be able to acquire land. There is also need to extend the civil society space. Currently in Uganda, there is shrinking space of civil society, women groupings, where they are termed as being anti-government. And yet, the work they do for the grassroots women is very important. So there is need to extend the space. Civil societies, women movements need to have free space to speak on the issues that affect the local people. I also need adoption of alternative sources of energy. You know, we are overstrained as Ugandan grassroots women when we use firewood as a major source of energy. It is very scarce to get firewood, and also it is surrounded with so many challenges. We have to walk long distances. We have to get smoke into our eyes and throat. So when we adopt alternative sources of energy that are safe, affordable, and clean for women, that will be most perfect. And also, I think lastly, we need to have women that are economically empowered, because in most of our communities, when one is poor, even when you speak in public, your ideas will not be taken. So we need women that are socially and economically empowered to be able to speak in public so that we can advance our issues.
Thanks for that, Beatrice. I think you mentioned a lot of incredibly powerful things, and particularly, you know, that call for alternative sources of energy. I think that's a call across the continent. I'm coming from Zimbabwe, where the government is, despite the recent IPCC report that has shown the impact of fossil fuels across the world, and that it's only going to get worse for all of us, you know, our government is moving even more in the direction of coal. And this is, you know, despite all of the scientific evidence, as well as the evidence that, you know, people have shown of the impact of fossil fuels on our continent, and the desperate need for us to invest in alternatives that are more sustainable and that everybody can access. Salomé, I'll pitch the same question to you in terms of the struggle going on in Inga, as well as other struggles against extractivism in the DRC. We know that there are plenty other struggles around natural resource extraction taking place there. What are sort of 2 to 3 things that, you know, women are really fighting for in terms of their climate justice?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, the women are fighting for renewable energy, because now we do have renewable energies, so we can have those alternatives than having to build the Inga Dam, where we know that the interests are not for the community, the interests are not for the population, the interest is elsewhere. So that is what women are fighting for. I did not hear the other question, Maggie. May you repeat, please?
No, you can, yeah, you've heard it really well. Is there anything else, like in terms of the vision of climate justice for women in the DRC? What are they fighting for in that sense?
Yeah. So what they're continue fighting for, like I said, first of all, for the renewable energy, so we don't destroy anymore. They say the second thing is like the same thing we are having with mining. So women are still, they are also fighting for it also, because as you know, it's like we are having like the same problems here in Africa. So as they continue fighting for the renewable energies, and it's good to know that women of the communities, they know now what is renewable energy, and they are like advocating for it, but they themselves, even without having us around. And what else can I add? Because I think Beatrice have said it all. I don't want to repeat the same thing that Beatrice have said, but I think she has said it all, because like economically, everything Beatrice has said, and I don't want to repeat her. As we all watch the film, we all have the same problems. It's all the same. So I don't want to repeat Beatrice.
Thank you for that, Salomé. If anyone from our audience has any sort of questions or comments, we really welcome you to speak up, and you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself to speak. One of the sisters who couldn't make it to be on this panel in person did send her contribution as a pre-recording. And so I'll just ask Rachel or Marissa if you could queue up that recording so we can hear from Medical. And yeah, and if anyone wants to speak, please raise your hands using the reaction function. So if no one has any questions, please may you play Medical's contribution so that everyone can hear her voice as well. Oh, Priyanti. Hi, Priyanti. Please, please may you ask your question or make your comment.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, thank you very much for the very powerful film and for some very equally powerful interventions from the two speakers. Makes me really angry though, because this is not a new thing. This kind of thing has been going on for far too long. And as an international community, people have tried to put in safeguards so that communities will be safeguarded. But obviously, those safeguards are not reaching far enough or being only observed in the breach. So I think it's really important to continue to highlight these issues, even at an international level. So just my question was to ask whether any of these, are these funded by the national governments, or are these, especially the Hydro Inga project, and or are they funded with international, loans or money from the international financial institutions? Just a question, just to find, because then there is another duty bearer there that we should hold to account.
Absolutely, Priyanti. Thank you for that question. Salomé or Beatrice, would either of you like to speak, or else I'd be happy to answer the question?
Yeah, I can just answer and then maybe you can complete it. That's not a problem. Yeah, like in the hydro in DRC, it's not funded by the government. So the government is like looking for, they are like working with African Bank of Development to look for investors so they can invest to the project. But when you are looking for investors to come and invest to the project, that means that the government have no say into it. That means that the investors will take all they need, they will like do whatever they want. So that is also the biggest issue we are dealing with that ourselves not having money to put in the project, but having investors to come and invest in the project without us having any say to it.
Sorry, can I just say, but that is actually not necessarily true. I think it happens because governments are so sort of try to sell the investment at the lowest possible denominator. But there are internationally agreed standards that governments should actually hold investors to. And so I think there is a big conversation for, I mean, these are not things that communities can do, but that we can, that the people like ERO or other organizations working more globally or internationally can actually engage with communities to empower communities to recognize that these safeguards exist and insist on those safeguards, because I think governments kind of play this game, right? They want foreign direct investment, so they kind of go to the lowest possible denominator, but they still also have an obligation to look after their citizens. And I think there are human rights instruments that oblige them to do that. So that we need to kind of make sure that they don't violate their human rights obligations just because they want the foreign direct investment. So I think we really need to do more work on that as a global community of CSOs. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that intervention, Priyanti and Salomé. And I think, I absolutely agree with you both, is there are, safeguards in place, particularly, on the African continent, regionally and continentally through the AU, that are meant to hold corporations accountable for any of the projects that are taking place across the continent. But we find again and again that, even the environmental impact assessments that are supposed to take place before a project is initiated are not done in good faith, and communities are not even given the option to give their free, prior, and informed consent for any of these projects. So from the get-go, all of these standards and safeguards are completely ignored and are enabled by our governments because they're getting their money, but the communities, as usual, and as well as the lands and territories, are suffering. Thank you, Connie, who has made a really powerful point in the chat. And Connie, I don't know if you want to say it or I can just read it out. Connie saying, it got me thinking about the push for electric cars in Europe and North America, which depends on extraction of minerals from the global south, and also more generally about how mining companies try to sell their operations to communities as green mining. I'm not sure where I'm going with this exactly, maybe how to resist co-optation of environmental justice demands by the same extractive companies that we're fighting against. Absolutely. And I think even when we are talking about a green economy, much of the minerals and resources that are required in order to make a green economy possible are coming from communities in the global south. You're going to need, rare earth minerals from Madagascar and the DRC and other countries like that. And so how do you even begin to imagine what a just transition to a truly green economy looks like if you're not talking about sort of that kind of justice in that way, and ensuring, that it's not, you're not again continuing the exact same framework of extraction that is harming people and it's harming the planet as well. we're almost close to running out of time. So I'm just going to ask Marissa to play Medical's input, just so that we can hear her voice in the space before we start to wrap up. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Medical Nziba from KZN Somkhele. I'm from Siyaphakama Women's Forum. I know the sisters from the film. I'm related to them. The film highlights the struggles that women continue to face in our community. They are still not treated with equal rights as it happens with the men in general. It's an ongoing battle that they continue to fight for their voice to be heard by corporate companies in the area. It is important to tell the stories of African women fighting for climate justice in order to make everyone understand that women will not be silent forever. Therefore, their voices ought to be heard when raised collectively about genuine impact as the result of extra activism in the area. This, of course, encourages many other women to join the fight and defend their rights. There is a lot of challenges women are experiencing in their struggle for climate justice, such as gender discrimination, ignorance from government department or relevant stakeholders, and intimidation. The women organized themselves through the local organizations and other support groups, mainly civil organizations. They are beginning to have a dialogue to talk about issues that affect specifically them in our society. Due to lockdown restrictions, they are not allowed to organize protests, but women have been staying in contact to discuss these issues through telephone calls. The film was released last year and nothing has changed. It is not going to be easily achievable because we have a local mining in the area that supply ESCOM. It is my understanding that it will take some time for our country to move away from coal-powered electricity. This issue of climate justice is also a global issue. It will require more powerful countries championing this term in order to make significant impact. It is important to participate in platforms such as Global South Women's Forum because we get to share our community struggles in the process, learning more about improving our own fights for our respective communities. We also build community networks which might assist in funding our community struggles and have ongoing external support. In the same vein, we raise more awareness and encourage more women to stand up and defend their rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much for playing Medical's input. We really wanted to have her voice in the space as one of the women who is a part of the South African communities that were shown in the film. So we're very glad that she was able to at least pre-record her contribution. We have one more question before we close. And Medical spoke to it a little bit in her input, but I'll ask Beatrice and Salomé very quickly, very briefly. Why do you feel it's really important to participate in a platform like the Global South Women's Forum? Yeah, so Beatrice, maybe we'll start with you and then we'll end with Salomé.
Thank you. It's very important to participate in forums like the Global South Women's Forum because we are able to share experiences and learn from one another. For instance, Here we are participating from different countries and different continents. We are seeing the real issues that affect grassroots people, and we are able to learn. And we are also learning on how those different women, grassroots women, are organizing towards opposing the oppressions that are taking place. And it also, in a way, motivates the woman in the struggle. For instance, me, Beatrice, I'm in Uganda, but I'm energized when I see other women from DR Congo, from South Africa, and elsewhere in the world, also putting to task their local authorities to improve on how they are treating the grassroots women in relation to extractives. And it is one way of building solidarity. The way Medical put it, I feel so much attached to other women in the world. I feel part of the South African women, I feel part of the DR Congo women, as they also feel part of me. In a way, we are building strong solidarity groups, and we are being energized, and we feel empowered when we speak. Also, there is a way it builds on our knowledge. We understand how different people are being oppressed and how they are trying to challenge such oppressions. And also, lastly, I think it strengthens networking and collaboration. I know I'm in Uganda and in Hoima, but I'm networking and collaborating with different women in the entire world, where I feel that if I'm handicapped in a way, I can be empowered by other countries, by other people from different world. So in a way, when we strengthen our grassroots networks, when we strengthen our solidarity in national, regional, and international, and worldwide, there is a way we continue resisting all the oppressions that are taking place among women.
Thank you, Beatrice. Salomé, do you have some words to add?
Yeah, okay, I can add, but I'll just repeat, but let me just say something. This is the big platform where we all come together and hear like different countries with different problems. Like when we sit and hear, like when we watch the film, we hear Uganda, the same problem that we are having in Uganda, it's the same problem that we are dealing with in DRC. Although it's oil there, here it's dams, or in South Africa, it's mining, even here in Congo also it's mining. So when we are sitting in this big platform and exchange, it gives us motivation to continue on fighting. It's building, it's also, we are building solidarities, and we know we can count on each other to like take our voices higher and higher again. And at the rest, I think this was the best moment to let people know, because I think it's not only Africans, even Asia, they are also connected. So it's a very big platform for us to have this film and to share this panel with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Salomé. And I think with that, we're coming to a close. In the chat box, I've included some information on how you can get hold of us at WoMin and find out more about the film and more about the organizing work that we are supporting and the important work of solidarity and networking and alliance building that is necessary in order to fight the many interwoven oppressions and crises that we are facing as a global community right now. So thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, Priyanti. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this session. Thank you to the Global South Women's Forum for this wonderful platform. We're looking forward to engaging more and attending more sessions throughout the week. And I think that's all from me. So I'll hand over to the Global South Women's Forum team to close us out. So thank you, everybody. If you can turn on your cameras and wave goodbye, that would be great. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Bye.
Thank you, and thank you so much.